Welcome to Manifest, hosted by international evangelist, teacher, and author Perry Stone. Enjoy unique insight into prophetic and practical truth. It's time to feast on fresh manna, so get ready to be blessed and encouraged. And now, here is your host and teacher, Perry Stone.
Daniel chapter 2, verses 20 through 21, this is the scripture that I want to use in your hearing. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those that have understanding." Now, there's three things I want to point out about this. In Acts chapter 1 and verse 7, God operates his will during what's called times and seasons. Number two, Daniel chapter 2:20 says that God changes the times and seasons. And the way he changes it in Daniel is by bringing a new leader in that passes different laws or adds laws or changes things from the past or adds something new. And you'll also discover, as you will learn later in the conference, that God uses war to often transform a nation from negative to positive, etc. So God changes the time and seasons. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, 9 through 10 tells us that these seasons come in what we call repetitive cycles. Ecclesiastes 1, 9, and 10, and also in chapter 3 said, "The thing which has been is that which shall be, and that which has been done is that which will be done again, and there's nothing new under the sun." We call this a repetitive cycle. Now, history will repeat itself in cycles. And this is something that we have to talk about up front. Israel was scattered and then restored as a nation. And this was predicted that they would be scattered, and it was predicted they would be restored. And one of the most interesting things I found out many years ago, if you go to the genealogies of the Old Testament and you start that Adam was 130 when his son was born, and you go all the way up to Terah was 70 when Abraham was born, and you add up those numbers, including the 2 years that are mentioned in the book of Genesis, 2 years after the flood, from Adam to Abraham is 1,948 years in the Bible. Let's repeat it in history. From the time of Jesus' birth, we go to the 0 year and we count 1,948 years. Israel is restored again as a nation. So you have the first Adam to Abraham, 1948. You have the second Adam, Jesus, to Abraham, 1948. And this is an example of what we call a repetitive cycle. In Luke 17, 26 through 29, we're told, "As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the time of the coming of the Son of Man, and as it was in the days of Lot." So what happens is we go to Genesis 19, then we go to Genesis 6 and 7, and we see the things that are happening prior to the flood, the things that are taking place prior to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and those very things are repeating that are mentioned by Jesus in Luke. All of those things, there's not one of those things not being repeated from those two previous time frames that's happening in our time. Now, one thing that is very clear to me, and I've studied this for a long time, is that prophecies are always linked with prophetic numbers. For example, a biblical number of significance is 7. Another biblical number is 40, the number of testing. Then there's 50, which is a Jubilee cycle, the year of Jubilee in Leviticus 23. Then there's the number 70, which deals with the Babylonian captivity. There were 70 elders. There were 70 members of the Sanhedrin. 70 comes up throughout the scripture in different places. And then if you look at Daniel chapter 8, and you'll have to get an old Bible that has the margins inside, there's an angel of numbers called Palmoni, and he is an angel that controls the numbers that were given to Daniel. And in the old margins of some of the Bibles, it will give you the Hebrew name where it says, "And this one saint spake to another." And that word doesn't mean saint in normal terms. It was actually an angel, according to the early scholars, that controls the numbering of prophetic events and the number that are involved, numbers involved in prophecy. Now, to show you how this works, I'm going to give you some very interesting insight. If you take the number 7, you'll discover, for example, that Joshua marched around the city city for 6 days. On the 7th day, the walls of Jericho fell. That's repeated in history. The 67 war in Israel. The 67 war in Israel lasted for 6 days, and on the 7th day it ended, and Israel annexed Jerusalem as the capital. They got the West Bank, they got the Gaza area, they got the Sinai Desert, and there's that number 7. 2 different wars. On the 7th day of victory, another war in 1967 on the 7th day of victory. That's a repetitive cycle. The 40-year cycles. From 1948 to 1988, we discover Israel was a nation in 48, but in 88 is when the Jews started coming back from Russia and from the North Country, which is the fulfillment of prophecies in the book of Jeremiah, several prophecies in the book of Isaiah. And so they left the North Country exactly 40 years from that particular time frame. Look at the number 50, the cycle of 50. You have in 1898, you had the Zionist Congress meeting predicting that in 50 years Israel would be a nation. From that time frame of 1898 to 1948 is 50 years. And exactly 50 is the number of a jubilee. And on May 14th, Israel was declared a nation again. Then you have a second one that I thought about today, and that is 1917, at the end of World War I, when the Balfour Declaration was given the Jews access back to Palestine. If you go 50 years later, you come to 1967, where the city of Jerusalem that was divided between 2 countries becomes united as the capital of Israel. So these numbers are very significant during a prophetic cycle, meaning when a prophecy is about to be fulfilled, or in the world prophetic events are taking place that lead to a fulfillment of prophecy, you will discover that numbers become very significant and always have meanings when you're in the cycle. When you're not in a cycle, you can't get numbers to match. You can't get stuff to add up. You can't get some of this stuff that we're talking about. Then there's the 70 generations. Now, I will preach in this conference a very heavy message on Israel's 70th year that I have never heard anyone preach. I had never researched this. The Holy Spirit spoke to me in my office and showed this to me, and I'm going to be giving that to you later. So we're going to talk about this number 70 and how that's significant as it relates to the time of the end. Now, let's talk about parallel prophetic dates. You will discover, as it relates to the nation of Israel, that many times a date that is significant in Israel, the actual date, will repeat itself again. For example, the 9th of Av on the Hebrew calendar is when the spies came back and said, we cannot take the land, and they fell into unbelief. The 9th of Av also is when the Babylonians came on the Temple Mount and burnt the temple to the ground. Wait a minute, the 9th of Av is the same day on the Jewish calendar when the Roman 10th Legion went to the temple platform and they burnt the temple down. And so you'll start discovering, like the month of Adar is very significant on the Hebrew calendar. We won't go into details with that, but there is a date that I want to give you that's very important, and I want you to notice how many major prophetic things happened in the month of Kislev, which is usually the month of December. Now, on the 24th of that month, now it does not fall, forget our calendar, because December 25th always is December 25th, but the Jewish calendar, it may be the 1st of December, that very day, the 24th, may fall later on the Jewish calendar. So don't think our calendar, but it's the Jewish calendar. On the Jewish calendar, on the 24th of this month, same month, here's what happened. The statue of Zeus was set up in the temple and defiled the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and that happened in the 2nd century BC. On that same day of that month, 3 years later, on the 24th of Kislev, the temple was rededicated by the Maccabees. Then the rebuilding of the temple, that after the Babylonian captivity and the Jews came back, the rebuilding of the temple under Haggai and Ezra and Nehemiah started on the same day and the same month. Jesus was conceived, according to most Messianic scholars, around the 24th of Kislev, which happens to fall on Hanukkah, or the Feast of Lights. And by the way, the 24th of Kislev is also the celebration of Hanukkah on the Jewish calendar, and it always falls at that same time. So I just want to throw something out here to you that I think is interesting. We have in the West a traditional time of Christmas where we celebrate, and some people like it and some people don't. And look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't like anybody who tries to take the joy out of people's life having fun with the things of God. Okay, so if you don't like a certain thing, praise God, don't like that certain thing. But if other people do, let them alone. Help me. Well, amen. I got half of you with me. I don't, you know. Look, I've been making people mad for so long, I'm just used to it by now, so it doesn't affect me like it used to. But anyway, the thing I want to tell you is if Jesus was conceived during the festival of Hanukkah, on that day, if you go ahead 270 days, it makes him born on the festival of trumpets. Hello, is that not amazing? And some even suggest it could be as far along as the festival of tabernacles, because John said the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and the Greek word for dwelt in John's gospel is the word for tabernacle. All right, now, here's another interesting one, and then we're going to go to something else. On that same 24th of that Hebrew month that we're talking about, something happened on December the 9th, 1917 on our calendar, which was the 24th of Kislev on the Jewish calendar, and that was the day when General Allenby rode that horse into Jerusalem and took the city of Jerusalem from the hands of the Ottoman Turks after 400 years. They had it from 1914 to 1917, and on that very day. Now look at this. Have you noticed that that day is connected to the temple? It's connected to the temple rebuilding. It's connected to Jerusalem being liberated. So that month on a Jewish calendar, and I'm only giving you some of the dates, but that month on a Jewish calendar has all these amazing events happening. Now, let us go now to our study at hand, which is to take the Jewish year 5779, and let's see what we can do about it. Now, if you've never seen this, if you've never watched this on a program, if you've never heard us teach on this, I can't just jump into this. I've got to do a little bit of study. Well, let's just say it this way. There are 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and we start, don't read from right to left. You see over here, number 1, 2, you've got all these different letters. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3, Daled is 4, Hey 5, Vav 6, Zayin 7, Het, Tet, Yud, and on through to the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And again, we're reading this way. And so what we have here is several things. We have a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. We have a certain form called Aramaic script that is the shape of that particular letter. And every letter of the Hebrew alphabet also has a numerical value to it. Now, we do not have, yes, we do. We have the numerical value up at the top. So if you'll see the top of each letter, it gives you the number of that letter, and the value at the 10th letter goes to 10, and then it doesn't go to 11, 12. It goes 20, 30, 40, 50, 67. And the reason you've got some letters that have 20 and 20 is there's a dot in the middle, and it has to do with the pronunciation. You see that with the letter bet or vet, kaf over here. You see that. I'm not trying to confuse you, but this is the top on the left side of the top is the numerical value of those particular letters. So what we do is we look at the letter 5779, those are numbers, and we translate those back to the value of the letter of the alphabet. Now, let us go back and give you some examples. Now, I want to tell you two things before I really get into the depth of this, because this is a deep study, and you're about to see major things that are connected to the year 5779. I checked what everybody had to say about 5779 on the internet, and I'm telling you, 80% of them were off the wall. I don't know where they got their information from. I don't know where it came from, but I said, that's off, that's not right, that's off, so you got to watch internet information. Two things I discovered shocked me that I'm going to show you, because when you add up the numbers, they spell Hebrew words. You remember when I said the 45th president would run, and if you take the number 40 and 5, it's memhe, which is ma, which means what, and I told you all that after the election, they'd say, what, how did this happen? Did they say, what, how did this happen after this election? Does anybody remember? Do you recall? All right, and so this is what I'm going to show you about this year. That is the year 5779 on the Hebrew calendar. I'm going to show you something, and we haven't even got to the depth of the message yet. The last 40 minutes of this message that we're about to get into is the depth of understanding the Hebrew alphabet. Now, what I want to do first of all is I want to tell you that there is a Gentile calendar and there's a Jewish calendar. And when we do this, I will do this again in 2019, and I will take the 10 and the 9 and show you the other side of this, but you'll have to be here in January of this year if you want to see that, because that's going to happen in January this year. What I want to do now is I want to take the Hebrew alphabet. All right, in the past years, using the Gentile calendar, I'm going to tell you the year and I'm going to tell you what it represented just so that you that were not here will understand. The year 2012, and I'm not going to tell you how we did this, but 2 is the letter Bet in Hebrew that represents a house, would be the year of the house. Believe it or not, that's when we began building this house. This building of OCI was in 2012. 2013 was the year of the camel, and we preached that the camels were going to bring the blessings in. And that was the year that OCI, or not OCI, VOE, received its largest donations to help build this building. We've not got anything like it before or since in the history of the ministry. Come on, somebody. Anybody remember it was the year of the camel? Come on, our camels came in. Come on, in 2013. 2014 was the year of the door, and we began to notice that in 2014, some of the largest doors of opportunity, doors to go on TV in the Ukraine, doors to go on in Israel, doors to do all sorts of things that we never knew were going to happen were open. 2015 was the year of life and the year of God's name, and the year when everything would come full circle. That was the year that T.L. Lowry kept saying, Perry, I built this building for your ministry. And we stepped in and began to realize that the T.L. Lowry Global Foundation was built for the ISO International School of the Word, and we purchased that building. It came full circle that year, and I look back on it later, I said, wow, that's exactly what happened. The year 2016, the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Vav. You've got Bet, Gimel, you've got Hey, you've got Vav, and it meant a hook, and it represented the year of hookups and connections, where God would connect you with people. And again, I don't have time to go back. It started happening in our ministry, and this is how I feel about this. I believe that it works for you when you accept it. I believe if you accept the word, it's just like the Bible. You look at the word, you receive it, it works. If you don't believe it, it don't work for you. How many know if you don't believe the Bible, it will not work for you? And so when I would see these things, I would begin to let it work. Now, this is the hilarious one, and everybody at OCI knows this one, and we've laughed about it all year long. In 2018, I stood in this pulpit on this platform, and it's the letter Het, and we began to break down that letter, and when we broke it down, it meant the year of births and the year when there would be new life in your house. And I stood on this platform and said, there will be more babies born this year than we've ever had born at OCI, and 14 women in the OCI ministry got pregnant, including Tiffany and my daughter-in-law. Now, let's take it into the year 5779. Now, everybody's got to pay very careful attention, because I'm going to throw numbers out there. I'm going to throw the Hebrew letter it represents, and I'm going to give you a meaning. So this is really, really important, okay? Everybody clap your hands and say, I'm ready. Last year, we moved from 5778 in the fall months to this September, moving to the Jewish year 5779. The 9th letter, we're going to key up on letter 9. Now, in all of these other examples, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we go to letter 9. It is the Hebrew letter Tet, Tet, T-E-T. And I'm going to pronounce it in the English way. There's different Hebrew pronunciations. And somebody's going to see this in Hebrew and say, what the real pronunciation is this? I'm going to pronounce it the way it looks for the English-speaking audience, okay? And so the letter Tet is the value of 9. Everybody say value of 9. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at the biblical references where the letter Tet is found, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to look at the meaning of the number value of the letter Tet, and then we're going to look at the symbolism of the letter Tet. Now, it's the year 5,779. You don't count 5,000. There is no letter in the Hebrew alphabet for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. When you get into the thousands, you don't ever count that. And even in rabbinical school, they don't count it. And even when the rabbis are teaching the system, they don't count it. You do count, however, 779. And the way you can do it, here's one way you can do it. You can take 700, and you can take 70, and you can take 9. Now, if you notice on the Hebrew chart, it doesn't go up to 700, but there are 5 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that have what's called a final form. They are often put at the end of a sentence or to break up a paragraph. They're put at the end. And these all have a number value. So if you look at 779 and you break it down by 770 and 9, here's what's really weird. It's one of those prophetic times. The 3 letters spell a Hebrew word. That's where you go, ah. Okay. 700 is a sheen. 70 is the ayin. It's a Hebrew. So the ayin value is 70, and Tet's value is 9. It spells the word sha'at. And it means to stamp or to trample under a horse's hoof. So I'm saying to myself, okay, 779 actually spells a word that means to stamp or trample under a horse's hoof. And I got to meditating on this, and it implied, and I know this is going to sound like bad news for everybody. It's like, oh God, not another one of those years, please, Jesus. I don't need another bad year. But I want you to hear the two sides of this. This is a duality number. It's a number that has a dual meaning. But I want to show you the value, what it means. It can imply the adversary using battles to try to make you weary or wear you down. And now where's my crowd? Come on, where's my crowd now that's been through that? Come on, somebody, talk to me. Let me tell you something. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but in Daniel 7:25, it says, he shall wear out the saints of the Most High God. And what is really interesting is there's a wearing down spirit. Let me tell you what the media is trying to do. The media is trying to present so much negative news, so much hateful news to wear down the minds of God's people. Look, they're at it. They have a strategy, and I'm going to say it because I can say it now. We've got more freedom to talk. We might not have this freedom in 2020, and we definitely won't have it in 2024 if the Lord tarries. It'll be taken from us probably. But I can say this. There is a strategy among the liberal left to hit till they wear down people, because they do not want conservatives showing up at the voting booth. They want to wear you down where you aren't going to be interested in voting. It's a strategy. It is an absolute strategy. It's been going on for a long time, and I think you all can discern that. Now, here's a verse that I began to meditate on when it said to stamp and trample under horses' hoofs. Jeremiah 12:5 says this, if you've run with the footmen and they have wearied you, then how can you contend with horses? And if in the land of peace in which you've trusted they have wearied you, what shall you do in the floodplains of the Jordan? So 779 broken down into the 770 and 9, and again, we're doing the fullness of it here, is a conflict in which the enemy will attempt to weary you. A conflict in where he will attempt to wear you down. Now look, we've been into this Jewish New Year for a couple weeks. How long has it been? About 2 weeks now? Pardon me for not knowing exactly. But we've been into this Jewish New Year. And how many of you have already, just be honest with me, experienced a weird weariness that is not normal for you? Put your hands up and wave it at me. Brother, are you going to tell us that this is going to be a bad year? No, you're going to have to keep listening. All right. Let's talk about that letter 9, because that's where the real symbolism comes in. That's what's significant. That's what's important. The letter 9 is the Hebrew letter tet, and this is the least used Hebrew letter of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The least used. However, it shows up big time at the creation story. And we like to tell you where it shows up. It is found in Genesis when God made light, and God saw it, and it was good. The word good is the Hebrew word tov. Now, how many of you are tov? How many of you have heard this? Boker tov. Boker is morning. Tov is good. Boker tov, good morning. So in the book of Genesis, the first place that this letter is used is in the Hebrew Bible, where God saw it was good, and he said 7 times, watch this, when God saw what he was creating, he said, it is tov, it is good. It was literally indescribable. It was without a doubt, according to our attendees, the greatest main event in 32 years. And now we have the DVDs and the CDs available for our Manifest television audience. I want to explain to you 5 messages that I preached. I preached a message called The Prophetic Meaning of the New Jewish Year 5779. I took that year, translated it back to the meaning of the letters of the alphabet, and revealed an amazing projection of what to expect spiritually, politically, and prophetically for this coming year. You've got to hear this. It is a stunning revelation. Then the Solomon Code. Hundreds of attendees told our staff that this was the most powerful revelatory message that the Lord had ever given me to preach, detailing types and shadows of the 3 men that built the tabernacles and the dwelling places for God. I'm going to tell you how heaven lost its song, how David tapped into the spirit world and brought the song back to earth, and how you, through worship and praise, and through singing, restore heaven's song back to God. You've got to hear this message. Here's one that's a real stirrer. Will the church go through the tribulation? The most controversial subject is the timing of the coming of the Lord. A lot of people seem to be accepting the post-tribulation return as the date of Christ's return. I'm going to use numerous scriptures in defense of the pre-tribulation theory and expose the weaknesses in the post-tribulation teaching. I believe you're going to find out that this truth and this revelation is found in the Bible, that Jesus is coming before the time of the tribulation. Then I preached on the prophetic alert, the trouble in the 70th year. I wondered why in May of this past year, when it was announced that the embassy was returning to Jerusalem, all hell broke out against the administration. I found the patterns in Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. The wall will be rebuilt, the Bible said, in troublous times. You've got to hear this major prophetic word that was preached at the main event. And finally, I preached a message called Concealed Messages from the Angels Who Delivered Lot. I'm going to show you that the things that the angels said to Lot are the very things they're saying to America, and what they predicted to Lot will happen here in the United States and parts of the world. I'm telling you, I want you to get these CDs and DVD albums. It also includes Ron Carpenter preaching Your Book of Destiny in Heaven, Bishop Tudor Bismarck preaching Being Delivered, Mario Morello preaching Becoming Armed and Dangerous in the Spirit. These 8 messages come in an album. You can get the CDs for $55 a set, the DVDs for $95 a set, and postage is included. Call the 1-888-21-BREAD number, or contact us at Voice of Evangelism with the address that is on the screen. God bless you. It's imperative that you hear all of this message. We edited it for TV. I want you to get the unedited version with all the detailed information on CD and DVD, and get the entire set. It will change your life, I promise you. Now, I want to tell you I'm at the property of Omega Center International here in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is our headquarters property. And it's a rather overcast day in Tennessee, but I pray that this year will be a great year for you, the year coming up. We're praying for our partners and friends of ministry, that God will give you favor in every area of your life. Speaking of prayer, you can join me every Thursday night live for live prayer. You can send in a prayer request over the internet, and our people will personally pray for you. And we want to make you aware of that. Prayer is a vital part of our ministry. Very quickly, I'm coming to Evangel Temple Assembly of God in Jacksonville, Florida, January 25th through 27th, Friday night through Sunday night. Summerton, Alabama, February the 1st through the 3rd at the Summerton Church of God, and Christ Way Church, first time ever, Flowood, Mississippi. That's February 22nd to the 24th. Go to perrystone.org for more information. We do want to share with you something exciting, that we will be airing 38 television programs that we just did in Israel on the Manifest telecast throughout next year, throughout 2019, I should say. So be looking for those. They're all new. I always have to put, it's real funny, people recognize the outfits that I wear, and if I wear them too many times, they think it's a rerun. So we had to go get all these new shirts for the new Israel program. So we got some wild ones, by the way. So God bless you. Thank you so much for your prayers and support of the ministry. We'll see you next week on Manifest. I want you to join me and my entire family for my 60th birthday celebration at sea on a brand new Norwegian cruise ship. It is an Alaskan cruise. That's going to be June 23rd through the 30th of 2019. We need to get you the information, so go online at perrystone.org to get the details and book your tour through Noseworthy Travel to ensure those special meetings where I'm going to be preaching at sea, and you can meet Pam and myself, and we can have a great time together. Hope to see you there.